everybody, and welcome to You Geeks, a show about all things geeky for the geeky York U student. Today on the show, we're going to give you our take on the hottest new series on Netflix, A Series of Unfortunate Events. A Series of Unfortunate Events was originally a series of children's novels written by author and journalist Daniel Handler under the pen name Lemony Snicket. The first book, A Bad Beginning, was published in September 1999. The series became known for its dark, ironic humor and sharp witticisms. Since then, it has exploded in popularity among young readers and has garnered significant critical and commercial success worldwide. In 2004, the series was adapted into a movie directed by Brad Silberling and starring Jim Carrey. It did moderately well at the box office, but what was going to be a franchise of films ultimately failed to come to fruition. But now a new series, starring Neil Patrick Harris as the incorrigible Count Olaf and developed by Barry Sonnenfeld, has premiered on Netflix. Neil Patrick Harris also serves as producer on the show, while Sonnenfeld was actually going to direct the movie adaptation in 2004 before the studio fired him. So this really is his shot at vindication. But is this incredibly miserable series miserably incredible? Let's find out. Hi, I'm Christopher Lai, creative director for Excalibur Publications.
I'm Jimmy Zhao. I draw a comic for the newspaper.
And today on YU Geeks, we're going to be giving you our review of A Series of Unfortunate Events, right now on Netflix. So, starting off, what's our familiarity with the series? Jimmy, how do you know?
As with most people, obviously, I read the books when I was a kid. The first one I read was actually The Wide Window, and then the thing about Daniel Handler's writing. Daniel Handler, who's, for those of you who don't know, he's the person who writes these books under his pen name, Lemony Snicket. He does that thing where you open it and he's like, do not read this book. It is full of, like, terrible things. So obviously, like, if you're a kid, like, you have to read it, right?
Yeah,
so
pick it up.
That just hooks you in. So so The Wide Window, the third book, actually was, like, my entry point into the series. And I read all of them. I don't think it was in order, but, like, I read, like, all 13 books.
Nice.
Eventually.
I started to see it like at Indigo in chapters. It seemed like the cover designs were so cool. So I ended up picking up the first one. Ended up really liking it despite it being really sad. And I've actually never read the last page of A Bad Beginning because when I was 10, I put it down because it was so sad. But I was like, now I need to find out what happens. So never actually finished the last page of Bad Beginning because it bummed me out so much. So there you go. Ended up finishing the whole series though, right until book 13. And how did you feel the series ended, like for kids?
It was the ending, like the 13th book. It's very very separate from like the rest of the series because spoiler alert for the book series. Like it takes place on like this island that's far away from society, and it's very different because all of the problems that the Baudelaires have been facing throughout the series, like with bureaucracy and just the systems of government not working out for them, it's all like removed. So they are now in this place where I'm just summarizing the 13th book at this point. They're in this place away from all that, and it. Okay, I don't know if I should talk about how it ended, but I feel like it ends on a very hopeful notes towards like the last moments of the 13th book ends on a very hopeful note, which was sort of like surprising.
Yeah, like not deeply depressing nor like perfect. It wasn't like the happiest ending, but it's kind of like things maybe like can turn up from here. Yeah. It was the end of their journey.
Yeah,
it was a pretty good ending. Not full of questions though. So. Some of those questions are actually kind of addressed in this series. It was really interesting to see this series take Daniel Handler's story and readapt it for the screen. But now, getting into the Netflix series, starring Neil Patrick Harris, done by Barry Sonnenfeld, who was set to direct the 2004 movie until the studio fired him. And then this is basically his comeback. This is him saying, I'm taking a series of unfortunate events and I'm doing it my way. I'm doing it the way I wanted to do it in the first place. So it's 8 episodes on Netflix. And they adapt the first 4 books. A Bad Beginning, Reptile Room, A Wide Window, and A Miserable Mill. So just starting off, Count Olaf, what did you think of him? Neil Patrick Harris.
I like Neil Patrick Harris, but I feel like sometimes like he seemed like his voice and his face was like too young for like the makeup that they put him in.
Yeah.
Like I felt like in the movie, like Jim Carrey played the makeup better because that's what he does. He's Jim Carrey. He's good at giving a performance that really goes all in. Whereas sometimes I watch when I'm watching the show, it just sort of felt like Neil Patrick Harris in makeup, which like it does. I mean, I do like his performance. He's really good at playing because in the show, Count Olaf is always disguising himself and playing like different characters to try to fool the other adults into thinking he's someone else. He's good at playing all these different characters, but when he's playing Count Olaf, it always feels a bit like just reminds me of Neil Patrick Harris. And
I would have to say I agree with that. I loved him, but he's not that. Admittedly, if there's a flaw in this series, he's not that sinister because you just love Neil Patrick Harris so much. Whenever you see Count Olaf, you're just like, Neil Patrick Harris! So you're kind of like, oh, well. As a villain, maybe not the most vile villain they could have made, but he's very entertaining. Like, me and my brother were watching it, and we're laughing constantly. Like, every like 5-10 minutes, we're like cracking up because he's just so off the wall goofy as Count Olaf, and he plays against the kids really well. Almost to the point where like you're not like rooting against him, you're just rooting for him to say one more weird, inappropriate thing to them because it's that entertaining.
What I really like about Neil Patrick Harris is he does that thing where he's playing like Count Olaf in disguise as someone else, but apparently this version of Count Olaf, like he can't stay in character for like more than like 30 seconds at a time, so he's always and it's really funny watching him play a bad actor.
It gets good because like then you get the layer of acting where it's kind of like he's Neil Patrick Harris acting as Count Olaf, acting as this other weird character like Stefano, the weird bearded guy, or Captain Sham, or Shirley the Receptionist. That was good. Whatever like fat suit they put on Neil Patrick Harris on the hips, that was like, wow, he fills out that dress real well. Now, what about the kids? Hines as Klaus and Wiseman as Violet.
The thing about the Baudelaire children, even though they are like the antagonists of the series, they don't really get a lot to do. Like they do a lot of things. The characters do a lot of things, but like in terms of like the acting, they can't get as over the top funny or scary as like the antagonists and the other characters. It was also true of the movie too. They tend to get like overshadowed by like the world that they're in. But I do really like the actors who play the kids, even if it's not like their problem. It's just like the role itself tends to get just overwhelmed by like Lemony Snicket and Count Olaf and Mr. Poe and all the other characters that are in this world. That they tend to feel like what's the word, like blank slates sort of.
They're very as the main characters, they're very normal.
Yeah, they're very normal.
I would say that they did do a good job of kind of portraying these sort of like bright, really intelligent, but kind of shy, not highly sociable, but they're very comfortable with each other. They're you get the sense that their home life and family life has been very insular. Yeah. So the brother and sister play off well against each other, but not with the wider world, because the wider world is always weird or perverted or strange. Yeah. And like messes. They're not messed up, but the world around them is messed up, and so they always have to contend with that, and so feel pretty awkward, but in a good way. Like I feel like their performances were really naturalistic. I never was like, oh, this is just a bad kid actor. It was like this is a kid navigating this weird little world that they've made. Let's talk about the world first.
I just want to say,
the
baby who plays Sunny is like the best
Yeah,
actor
how do
in
they
the
do
entire-
that with the? They have to CGI that baby
No,
sometimes.
they don't. I mean,
Not
well,
even a little bit.
Like the baby, like you can get like a performance out of a baby if you know how to. But it was
Interact with
just,
it, yeah.
she was just like the like
She's super cute.
one of
She,
the
like,
best actors in the entire.
She coos at the right moment.
Yeah, it was just wonderful. Yeah.
But yes, going off of that, the world that they're all living in, it's simultaneously dark and dreary, and bright and bombastic, which I thought was awesome because that kind of encapsulates the energy of the series and the garish tones of it, but at the same time the dreary and drabness. Like, how'd you feel about all the art direction and everything that was in the series?
Well, I felt like the thing about a series of unfortunate events, like the book that Daniel Handler wrote, is that he always makes sure to make it removed from reality, at least like a few steps removed from reality. So that's how he can have like all these like child abuse and like, you know, implied like pedophilia, but because of like, you know, with Count Olaf trying to marry Violet,
Yeah,
but like
it's
the
dark. Dark
it's
series.
very dark. It's a very dark series, but like but the way he tells the story with a lot of like fourth wall breaks and in jokes and just deliberately reminding the audience or the reader in this case that they're reading a story, like a fictional story, it makes it more palatable. And I think that it was very clever of like the art direction. The way everything is filmed, it's always like they always remind the audience that they're watching a TV show. Like even the like the intro, the song, it's like, you know, look away from this show. This is, yeah.
Look away. I love that.
Yeah.
There's a different theme song for every 8 episodes.
Yeah,
They like retweak the theme song so it fits the episode.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
It was very awesome. And like sometimes, you know, Neil Patrick Harris would like look at the audience and just like give look at like or make jokes about like oh, so I prefer long form television where you can watch or digital streaming. Like they're always referencing the fact that it's a TV show, and that fits in the style of the books because it creates like this it stops the audience from taking the story too seriously. And one thing that I've noticed is that like with the baby, with Sunny, sometimes they will switch it to like an obvious looking doll. And that works because like if they made it look too realistic, then you would be scared for the baby's life. But like whenever the baby's in danger, like you can see like
it's hokey and
Yeah.
then it works.
yeah,
at
it
the
works.
Same time.
It works
It's, like,
because
weird.
it fits the tone of what they're trying to go for.
They go into the curve. They just they take their limitations and they play it into a strength. That is one of the coolest things about this series. So I guess we're kind of giving away. I think we both really like the series. It's pretty good. But I have heard from like our editor in chief. She watched the series a little bit and she was saying like it's very dreary, but it also feels like kind of kid-like. Like it's told in a very fairy tale-esque style. So she was asking like, what audience is this for? Who's it really aimed at? Also, it's premiering on Netflix, which most 10-year-olds, well, maybe I'm wrong. I didn't think most 10-year-olds had a Netflix account. I thought it was mostly college kids. But this series, who does it play well for, and who does it not play so well for?
It's interesting that you bring that up because when I was watching it, I remember really liking it, but like I was never sure if I enjoyed the show or if I was just enjoying the nostalgia factor. So I watched it with my little sister, and she I think she really liked it. Like she was laughing at all the jokes, and she was just like she seemed like so like I was sort of like surprised by like not surprised as in like, oh, I thought she would hate it, but like surprised as in like I didn't expect I felt like this show was for more of like a niche audience almost.
Yeah.
But no, like my sister liked it, and she's pretty like she's like younger than me, and so I think that's a good sign.
Well, that's a little bit of the beauty of Netflix. Like the weird things that wouldn't get airtime before now have that niche, and they're like, no, we do have a market for this. We can put this out. And I kind of feel like this show, kids actually really will respond to this show, I think. Because it's not really that, like, kids can watch it. It's not that violent. It's not, there's not anything super inappropriate. Like, if you're 8, you can read the books. If you're 8, you can watch the show. And Something that the show does really well, and the books did really well too, and they carry it over, is that the kids have agency. The adults are all idiots in this show. The adults are idiots in the books. But the kids are all making their own decisions, being heroes, going out and doing cool stuff, or even though they're in terrible situations, Violet's super smart and can invent anything. Klaus is super brainy and has like an encyclopedic knowledge. And Sunny is like kind of scary and dangerous with her teeth. This show clicks with kids in a way that a lot of people wouldn't expect, because it's like super dark and kind of dreary and a little weird. So they're like, oh, this isn't for kids, but it is. I challenge you to any kid who likes Harry Potter, I think might respond to this. Like, you should probably.
That's
give it a
funny
chance.
because when I was a kid, when I was reading it, I sort of felt like it was like the reverse Harry Potter. Because like with Harry Potter is about a kid who starts off in like a really miserable situation, but then one day his life has changed and he's going to like Hogwarts, and like his life just becomes better. Whereas this is the opposite. It's about it's a flip. Like kids start off like they're rich, they have a rich family, they live in a mansion, and one day they just lose everything. So I just think it's interesting that you're reading Harry Potter.
It's a pretty good point. Yeah, like it's a good inversion of that Harry Potter thing. But if you also like Harry Potter, then there's like there's mystery, and they get to like explore like this wider. They call it the VFD in the books. It's this mysterious organization, and they hint at it in the show. They don't show you everything, but they're giving you little tidbits. It's pretty sweet. It's, if you're a fan of the books, there's lots of little tidbits dropped in this Netflix show.
While we're talking about like other reference points, I'm gonna say like I think like if you enjoy like Wes Anderson movies,
yes,
this might be like up your alley. Like
absolutely.
It seems very a lot of like shots are like symmetrical, a lot of one point perspective, and it's like normally I'm not a big fan of Wes Anderson, but I feel like his style, or like the style that they made that's like similar to Wes Anderson's style, works for this series because of the as I was saying before about how removed from reality sort of it is, and how it can it makes the it makes all the dark dreariness more enjoyable to watch.
Absolutely. And for other like if you're wondering, like if you've never read the books and you're wondering, well, I like the series, should I check it out? Some of the other things that you might like Jimmy said, Wes Anderson movies, but also Brian Fuller, if you're a fan of some old television series that were very cool but underappreciated, like Pushing Daisies or Dead Like Me, this is a series that might speak to you. It's like that kind of same ironic, dark humor with a twinge of fun and happiness. It's a really cool mix of stuff. It's a nice soup. It's a nice soup of interesting elements. Let's talk about an unsung hero, Patrick Warburton, as the narrator in the series Lemony Snicket. What do you think of him?
I thought he was great. Like he's
so
Patrick Warburton. Like he has that. The thing with him is like, it always seems like his career is like based on like his voice, because he has a very like low manly voice. But no, like that he can actually act too. Like he really when you're watching him, you really get the sense that like he's seen things. Like he has like a long history of things that have happened to him, and he needs to tell this story, no matter how painful it is for him to reminisce about all the horrible things that happened to these kids.
And while he's being so serious and so melancholy, he is also cracking the audience up. I like so many big laughs from Patrick Warburton. He's amazing as the narrator for this series. I guess that kind of brings us to overall thoughts. Yay or nay? Good for book fans?
Well, definitely a yay for me. One thing I didn't talk about earlier, I sort of mentioned it, but just one specific thing I'd like to talk about is the thing I love about adaptations is it's really fun to watch how they take like a word or a narration from the books and visualize it somehow. So like one of the things I loved the most was from like towards the last episode, they adapt the beginning of the 5th book, of the All-Star Academy, and when they go to the academy in the book, it's described as it looks like a gravestone. Like the buildings are shaped with like a rectangular with like a rounded top.
Yep.
And so I was like, oh, what? Like when I was reading as a kid, that imagery like stuck with me because of how effective it is. And then when I watched the show, for all the far angle shots of the academy it's literally just like a graveyard, like a cemetery in the middle of like this empty desert. And it was just like
where hopes and dreams go to
yeah
die.
Exactly. It was just a really clever way. Well, not necessarily clever because it comes directly from the book, but it was a very great way to like that is how you adapt a book. Like you take the words and you visualize it in a way that's true to the original intent. So yeah, so overall, like I really loved the books and the series, and I think I will definitely be back for seasons 2 and 3.
Me too, absolutely. And like it just taps into this great like sort of like moody, funny, gothic niche that like Tim Burton fans, you know what I'm talking about. But you know what? Tim Burton's kind of like he's not always at the top of his game anymore, and he's kind of wandered off. But the people who made this is filling that itch. This is gonna give you what you want if you've been like, oh man, Tim Burton doesn't do anything fun anymore. This is good. You want to check out A Series of Unfortunate Events on Netflix. So I guess that's all the time we have. So thank you very much, Jimmy, for coming on the show with me today.
No problem.
I'd also like to thank our video editor, Alexander D'Souza, for helping us with production today. And until then, we'll see you next time on You Geeks. Stay geeky, York you.